I want to try to get some reviews done tonight, so let's start with the quickest one and probably the most forgettable one. Let's start with Fist Fight. So, Fist Fight is a very simple premise for a comedy. It's the last day for seniors in this particular high school, so let these senior pranks commence. The high school is chaotic with all these students doing pranks and doing some pretty damn illegal things. And it's got all the teachers on edge, especially Ice Cube, who is the scary teacher of the high school. Pretty much the only teacher that actually gives a shit and actually disciplines the kids, but very hot-headed. But Ice Cube's character is not our main character. Our main character is Charlie Day's character. Charlie Day plays the kind of teacher you'd expect Charlie Day to play. He's a bit of a wimp, a sneak, a spineless guy who is the nice guy all around, but lets everyone step all over him. Eventually, some sort of prank happens to Ice Cube's character, and Ice Cube goes overboard. Charlie Day rats him out, and now Ice Cube challenges Charlie Day's character to a fist fight. And that's the premise. Two teachers that are gonna fight after school, and the whole movie is pretty much Charlie Day either preparing for it or trying to get out of it in some way. And there you go, there's Fist Fight. I wasn't looking forward to this movie all that much, but I thought, maybe it could be an okay movie. Now, I definitely can see people thinking this is okay or really liking it. For me, it was pretty forgettable. As you'd expect from a rated R comedy, it is very crude and very crass. Which I don't mind comedies like that, but when it's the only thing that they're going for, and sometimes it feels completely out of place, like in this movie, it just doesn't work all that well. There were some moments where I did chuckle at the comedy, but it was so far and few between that for the most part I was kind of frustrated, honestly. I thought Charlie Day did a good job, I thought Ice Cube did a good job, I thought a lot of actors and actresses involved with this movie did a fine job and did what they could. But for the most part, they feel like they're just going through the motions and just playing stereotypical characters of what they would normally play as. And it just kept reminding me that a lot of these actors and actresses have done better with these type of characters in far better movies. And so for the most part, the acting just felt serviceable. As well as the comedy. The comedy, it was hit or miss for me, and most of the time, like I said, I was frustrated most of the time rather than enjoying it or rather than chuckling at the jokes. I can see the jokes, I understand the jokes, I know that some people will like them. For me, it was just sort of meh. And a lot of improv. If you're not a fan of improv comedies, well, Fist Fight is not for you. It was definitely very evident that there was a lot of ad-lib because of all the bloopers before the credits and all the different things that were just thrown out there. Yeah, a lot of these scenes were most likely ad-libbed and there was probably no script. Well, barely a script. Now, one thing I did appreciate in the film is there is a character arc for Charlie Day's character. There is an actual character development and a character change within the movie, and you feel like he actually is a different person by the end of it. Yeah, Charlie Day's character has some growing up to do. He becomes the nice guy that lets everyone step all over him, gets a little less spineless as the movie progresses, and gets a little bit more bold. Even though some of these bold choices are trying to sneak out of the fight, he goes about it in bolder ways that his character from the beginning of the film would not do. And so there is a character development, and I appreciated that. It actually put in the effort. And the one saving grace of this film, the one thing that keeps me from giving it a really bad score, because for the most part I was pretty bored, the fight at the end of the film, well worth it. Sure, if you're not liking the film and feel like you have to climb through a pile of crap to get to it, you might not appreciate it as much, but for me, it turned a meh movie into a really great ending because I loved the fight between Ice Cube and Charlie Day. It was pretty brutal and really good. To be honest, I don't really have a lot of issues with Fist Fight. It just becomes more of a unfunny comedy for the most part, and because of that, I didn't like it as much. I can think of things that are really good about the film, and I can think of things that people will like about it, but for me, Fist Fight, pretty forgettable. And the one thing that frustrated me the most is the over-the-topness of the film. And yes, it's a comedy, it's a crazy premise, it's meant to be over the top, but there's a level of over the top and exaggeration that I can stand and handle. Sometimes I can go over that if the film is good enough, if the acting's good enough, and the jokes are funny enough. But if it's not that level, and it's just somewhere in between, just above the peak that I'm willing to go, then yeah, it's gonna be like Fist Fight, where I really hated the exaggeration and the alternate reality of this movie and how all these kids are getting away with a lot of pretty illegal things for the most part. Very dangerous things. And it is crazy, like I knew going into it that there was gonna be at least some thing that I'm just like, yeah, that wouldn't happen in the real world. And yes, I know it's a comedy, but there's just so much that I can take a leap of faith on that I can suspend my disbelief. The whole call where he calls the cops and 911, it's like, hey, this teacher's gonna have a fight with me, can you come help me? And then them all just laughing in his face like, fight your own damn battles. It's like, okay, this guy's gonna assault me, so you're not gonna send the cops? Oh great. Okay. Really? Yeah, some things like that just bug me in comedies every so often. And there were definitely a few jokes that I didn't really like in this movie, but were repeated, and it's like all the ones I didn't like were repeated the most, and that was frustrating as well. Such as the teacher that's hitting on her students. Well, she's not a teacher, she's the, what was she again? Guidance counselor. She was the guidance counselor that does meth. Basically, she had two jokes throughout the entire film. The fact that she does drugs and meth, and the fact that she wants to have sex with the kids in high school. And the reason that Ice Cube gives for not backing down from the fight and wanting to challenge Charlie Day for the kids and to show the kids that there are consequences to their actions, despite the fact that no one, like, shouldn't you just punish the kids for their own actions? Do you have to show that another teacher has to pay? And I think there are things deep within this movie where there is something to say. There is actually satire about society, about technology, about how news travels really fast electronically. Like the whole fight is just sort of gossip at first, and then it automatically gets on the internet, and then everyone is like, hey, the whole town's like, hey, have you heard about this teacher fight? We all gotta go. I mean, there's something to say about that in this film, but it doesn't feel like the film knows that, and it's just played off for jokes, but not satire, which there is a difference, I feel. And there is this whole thing about the school budget, which I knew was gonna play out through the entire movie, especially when it's first done in the teacher lounge, and then it becomes a whole conflict where they're cutting back and cutting teachers and getting rid of entire departments. And somehow the teacher fight resolves that conflict of the school budget, which is kind of crazy. Like, it's not one of those things where it's Ice Cube's character's master plan where he knows that if he has a fight with the teacher, it'll get all this news and all this publicity, and they'll look into the school budget. It's not like one of those master plan things, it's just sort of coincidental. Yeah, for the most part, I would recommend renting Fist Fight if you really want to see it, but some people might like it, so if you're into this type of comedy, you might enjoy it. But for me, I'm going to give Fist Fight 2 stars. So, have you seen Fist Fight? What'd you think about it? Go ahead and comment below. And if you like this video and you want to see more, please subscribe and check out my movie reviews of 2015, 2016, or 2017. As always, this is Bruce Gifford, and this was just my opinion.